All right, welcome back, everyone. This is our last presentation for this conference. Many more coming in the future, but I'm pleased to pronounce this correctly, hopefully. Healixa. Introducing Healixa Inc. It trades on the OTC pink sheets under the symbol EMOR. It's a technology company with assets in both health tech and fintech, which is marrying code and care to create exceptional experiences in health technology. Plus, I believe you're about to have a long series on New to the Street as well. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Ian Parker is the CEO, and whenever you're ready, Ian, you may commence your presentation.
Thank you. So, Healixa, first, thank you for having us today. We're very excited about the presentation. We just went through an extensive rebranding, embarked on an extensive rebranding of the name to Healixa to better reflect the company's health tech and fintech assets. We wanted the name to be reflective of all of our healing technologies and not just a segment of them. So we're excited to talk about both of those today. Forward-looking statement, disclaimer. So in terms of our digital care ecosystem, what you have today is the National Medical Group. You have a very scalable, advanced virtual care platform that can scale to almost any numbers. And then you have a national footprint and an integrated digital pharmacy. This is where the patients interact with the doctors virtually, and we're able to get them their therapies. We have signed a last mile delivery agreement, so we're able to get those therapies in certain areas to the patient same day. What we haven't discussed as of yet is how the fintech and the health tech assets fit hand in glove together. We are going to talk about a little bit of that today, and we're very excited to discuss that as we go here. The medical group is a very key part of the overall ecosystem. What it allows us to do is broaden the scope of practice for what we can offer inside of the ecosystem. We can bring on a variety of specialties, and we're going to talk about how the advanced patient monitoring actually increases that. And I think the key here that I want to leave everybody with is that the team that we have that is building and running our medical group has been involved in over $900 million in sales in a variety of other telehealth companies and has onboarded more than 75 million lives. So we have a very strong team when it comes to the medical group. This is a great illustration of how the entire ecosystem fits together. You have virtual care, a virtual care platform where the doctors and the patients can interact virtually. That drives right into the digital pharmacy. So now we're able to, not only can the doctor see you, but he can now prescribe to you, and we can track that in real time and get it to your door when you need it. And then we have the advanced virtual care, and this is the part that I think is some of the cooler tech that you're going to see out there. Most people don't realize that this particular device they don't realize how powerful this device is. This particular device nowadays, with the cameras they have built into them, we can actually use this camera on this phone right here, and we can scan your face, and in 20 seconds, I can now take real-time vital information from you. I can get your blood pressure, I can get your heart rate, I can get your oxygen rate. I can do I can get a lot of vital signs just from scanning your face. That broadens the scope of practice and the type of things that we can prescribe virtually here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. The last piece of this, and this is a good example of how fintech and health tech merge. The way this particular piece is the e-wallet, our proprietary e-wallet. So what that allows us to do is capture your identity, verify your information, and now go scan all of the governmental aid that may be available to you in the hit of a button. That allows us to help you find not just the housing and the food aid that you may need, but also the healthcare aid you may need and the medication aid you may need. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go. The key points behind the digital pharmacy, and I think this is very, very important. When we looked at users, most companies are defining users as the patient. We have a lot more than just patients using the platform. So when we built this system, we weren't just looking at providing the patients the benefits that they need, but also the physicians, the pharmacists, and the manufacturers. So when we built this system, we built it with a complete thought of how we get the benefits to all of these parties and not just the patient. The key, now that we've done that, now we've accomplished that, the key here was to now get central processing up and running. And as of February of this year, we have central processing up and running. We have digital pharmacy, our digital pharmacy is now starting to produce revenue as of this quarter. We're very excited about that. We signed our first transaction whereby we now have 38 states that we have mail order licenses to. We have over 20 pharmacies that we can fulfill at, and we have now onboarded, in addition to that, a team that was previously running about $200 million in revenue. They came and they joined our team, and we're starting to see the pipeline build because of their addition to our team. In terms of our pipeline right now, in terms of digital pharmacy acquisitions that are in the pipeline right now, we've got about $133 million in both internal growth and pharmacy targets. This is being worked on as we speak because we've onboarded the team. This number continues to build. We'll keep everybody posted as to our targets and as we sign transactions to finalize some of these targets. And we have the transaction that we recently signed that is currently producing over $8 million in sales a year. The other key part of the ecosystem, it's great to have all of these things, but you have to have lives inside of the ecosystem in order to make money. So we signed a transaction last year with Health Services Hub. Health Services Hub has 3.2 million covered lives inside of their ecosystem. They have now joint ventured that with us, whereby we can bring all of our bundles, all of our services, and bundle them together to market to this 3.2 million lives. This 3.2 million lives, there is a certain amount of these lives that are chronic condition in nature, and the goal here is to find those chronic condition patients and provide them with long-term value and keep them inside of our ecosystem so that they don't have to look elsewhere to actually get their treatment. In order to do that very efficiently, this is where the remote patient monitoring, the remote patient scanning comes into play. This is where we can now scan your face and I can get your blood pressure. I can get your breathing rate, your heart rate. Sorry about that. Your cardiac workload, your irregular heartbeats, your pulse rate. I can get all of those from just scanning your face. It takes 20 seconds. There's nothing else that you have to do other than look into the camera. What that allows us to do, and this is the key behind that, is that because I can give that data in real time to a physician, I can now broaden the scope of practice, so I can bring on additional specialties into the virtual care ecosystem. I can create additional reoccurring reimbursements, so I have more predictable revenue streams, and I can also stabilize the patient treatment and medication adherence. That's very important because that means that I can now expand the range of therapies that I can prescribe virtually. So when you think about what that means to the digital pharmacy side, the digital pharmacy now has, instead of having a smaller universe of therapies that it can prescribe or it can fill, that universe now grows exponentially. Just to kind of show you how this works in real life, how we can use this and be flexible to address a larger populations or underserved populations. When we were speaking to, in particular, an assisted living facility, one of the challenges that we had with the assisted living facility was that the doctors were somewhat adverse to servicing that population virtually. The reason for that is that particular population usually doesn't have one condition, they have multiple conditions. They aren't typically taking one medication, they're taking multiple medications. So in order for the medical community themselves, in order for the physicians themselves to feel comfortable and confident and able to provide proper care to that population virtually, we needed to employ real-time data capture. And that allowed us to actually service this population. So this is just a good example of how real-time data and a very simplified data capture allows us to expand this therapy to a variety of underserved populations. The last piece that we're going to talk about today, and there's a lot more to come here, but this is the foundation of it, is the e-wallet and the access to aid. So there's a lot of, and this is especially important right now during the COVID pandemic, people need access to housing, medication, prescriptions, food, and various other aid to help them recover from what's happening out there in the world right now. And there is a lot of aid out there, but it's hard to find. You actually have to go out and find it. So once you do find it, you have to push paperwork back and forth. It's somewhat of an archaic system. It could take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to process that particular aid. At which point in time, if you need that aid, you typically need it faster than 6 to 8 weeks. So what we did was we built into our overall care ecosystem the application. We integrated the e-wallet, which is a decentralized banking application. What that allows us to do is verify your identity, capture your personal information, search the available programs, determine your eligibility right there on the phone, and then submit the application with just a hit of a button. So once you qualify and you qualify for that aid, you can now receive that payment directly into your e-wallet. This cuts the timing for that down to 1 to 3 days. This is a good illustration of how we stack up against other telehealth companies. When you look at where we are right now, as you can see, most of the telemedicine companies don't have anything below this line here. There's one that crosses over, but they don't have much above this line. So there's very little in terms of competition there. When we take a look at the pharmacy side of the business, as you see, most of our competition on the pharmacy side doesn't have much above this line. So we have a much more robust offering, especially now that we've integrated the Fintech into the mix. Our goal was to pull all of these fragmented pieces together and create one continuum of care, whereby we're pulling the pieces that are important to the patient, the pharmacy, the provider, and obviously the last mile and the access to care. You pull all of those together in one seamless environment, one healing ecosystem. And that was the key to what we were building here, and we really have accomplished something that I think very few others have out in the marketplace, which is a true care ecosystem. I'm going to take questions now, so I'm happy to sort of take questions here. If you have additional questions for us, you can email Brett here at Healixa, and we're happy to talk about all of the things that we have on a one-to-one basis if you'd like, schedule time. So thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Yes, we do have a few questions, starting with your name change. Why did you change the name?
Sure. So again, we wanted it to be reflective of both of our fintech and our health tech assets. The key here is that we have, when we look at our healing technologies, we look at healing the user experience out there, both of those come into play. So the adoption of the name is really reflective of the breadth of technologies that we are able to deploy to solve those complex global challenges.
Perfect. And so for some of our viewers, they're curious about how you are, so give us some more examples of how you're merging health tech and fintech.
Sure. So a good example of how we're merging health tech and fintech is that social safety net piece. If you look at an overall care environment, when we look at keeping people in the ecosystem, if they're having trouble finding the aid they need in terms of healthcare or finding the aid they need in terms of medication, we want to be able to have one seamless place where they can find that aid. If we don't provide it to them, then they have to go out and search for it, and they may not come back. So the goal here is to make sure that we're able to provide it to them. A good example of that is somebody comes into the ecosystem and they can't really afford their medications. Well, as a pharmacy, we want to make sure that they can afford their medications. So being able to give them one place where they can hit a button and search all available aid out there to see if they qualify for something that can help them afford that medication gives us a leg up on everybody else and all of the other competition.
Thank you. So would it be accurate to say that when you define health, you're not just referring to physical health, correct?
That's right. You've got it. When it comes to the health of a person, we're looking beyond the physical. We're looking at your mental health. We're looking at your financial health. Those two things tend to be tied together. So let me give you an example of how that works in real life. Somebody comes into the ecosystem, and that particular person is suffering from mental health. And let's just say they're suffering from depression. The root cause of that depression is that they're worried about putting food on the table, or they're worried about housing, or they're worried about access to healthcare, or they're worried about paying their medical bills, or they're worried about not being able to pay for their medication. That person comes in, and instead of our provider saying, well, have you looked out there to see if you can find some aid that can help you in that situation, that our provider inside of our care ecosystem can now say, well, why don't you download the social safety net program? Why don't you let the program do the work for you and see what you qualify for? That now allows us not just to give them advice on the current symptoms of the condition, but also address the root cause of the condition. So that's an excellent example of how health tech meets fintech, and they work synergistically together to heal that user's experience.
Absolutely. I relate to that. So tell me a little bit about what's the next big thing on the roadmap for you all, and what would you like to end with? If you could have some closing remarks as the last company that we're presenting today, what would you like to end with, Ian?
Sure. So I think that there's two big things on the roadmap for us, and we talked about one of them a little bit today, which is the advanced patient monitoring. That's going to be very crucial for us driving revenues in the future. We are at the cutting edge of that technology right now. That particular piece is being rolled out as we speak, and that's going to allow us to really provide those chronic condition users with something that they can't really find in the marketplace right now, a real complete package in terms of continuum of care. What that means for us in terms of user lifetime value, as I like to say to everybody here often, how do we increase user lifetime value? We keep providing the user more value. That's the magic. So the more value we can provide to them, the more valuable they are inside of the ecosystem. So that particular part of it, as it rolls out, really allows us to take the pharmacy acquisitions that we're making right now and the populations that we assume there and significantly increase those user lifetime values. In terms of harnessing the power of voice, so there's a lot of voice activation devices out there. We've all seen them. Google's got one and Amazon's got one, and there's various others. We're now integrating the voice activation into the digital platform to further enhance how we can provide that patient monitoring piece and the patient education piece of the ecosystem. What that'll allow us to do is keep you away from going to the highest cost areas of care, hospitals, medical groups, and so forth. And it really does allow us to provide you care around the clock.
And to add on to that, a few questions from our viewers. How will you compete with Apple Watch, Garmin, and other watch health units that are out there?
Sure. I think what we have right now is more advanced than what they have, right? And it's not just the technology itself. It's also understanding how that technology integrates into the workflow for healthcare. Again, healthcare, I think there is this kind of misnomer out there that technology is catching up to healthcare, and it's actually the other way around right now. If you look at healthcare in general, healthcare has typically been a slow adopter of the digital environment. What you're seeing right now, these technologies have existed out there, but you're seeing right now, because of the pandemic, is a very rapid adoption of the digital environment into healthcare. The key is not just throwing all of these fragmented pieces at the healthcare community, but taking them and putting them in one care continuum that's actually easy to implement inside of the healthcare community. So the answer is yes, we are competing with them, but I think we're way ahead of where they are in terms of a complete thought of an ecosystem, a care ecosystem.
Thank you. And your connection with deposits.com, would you like to talk about that?
Yes. So deposits, it's because of deposits that we have the e-wallet in place. And you can see how we've integrated that into the overall care continuum. There's a lot more to come on deposits. There's some very exciting things that are going to come here in the very near future in terms of adding to that overall care continuum. Again, mental health, financial health, they're very much linked. So how you're going to see a lot more news and a lot more announcements come out when it comes to how we're going to utilize deposits to help continue to solve the financial wellness of our users, as well as the mental health of our users.
Well, fantastic. Great presentation, Ian. Great technology. We're happy to have you on this conference and look forward to hearing all your updates in the near future. When will we see you on New to the Street?
I believe it'll be next week.
Okay.
So sometime next week we should be airing. I do believe, but we'll put out an announcement so that so everybody can join us for that particular
All right.
That particular interview.
Thank you, Ian, for your time and your presentation. And
Thank
what
you.
fantastic companies we've had today. On behalf of all of us at Emerging Growth, I'd like to thank all of our presenters, all of our attendees, all of our companies for helping this now, the second Emerging Growth Conference, such a great success, many more to come. So a complete replay of this conference will be separated by company. It'll also be made available on the Emerging Growth Conference YouTube channel. You can find the links to subscribe for that, subscribe and share. Please follow us on Twitter @Emerging Growth. And you can always be alerted to when we're posting different attendees, different dates and times of upcoming conferences, and all different types of updates and information. I'm Anna Berry, and on behalf of myself and everyone who made it today, hundreds of people watching from all over the world, I wish you all a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you all back here very soon. Thank you all. Be well.
Take care.